And you know, as much as I'm loving all of the attention that I'm receiving because of that, I decided on day one that it could be something that I could use for my own benefit, or it could be something that I could use to really help the two communities that you mentioned, the Latino community and the LGBT community. So first of all, happy Pride. I think Boyd just talked to you all about the importance of the state legislature, and I think that's one of the things that most people who have a very passing knowledge of politics tend to ignore. They tend to forget the importance and the important effect on every single person, every single day that the state legislature has. I'm coming from Arizona, so it feels just like being at home. Some of the most regressive laws against both the Latino and the LGBT communities. So being here and women. So being here and feeling like home is not a good thing. And I think when the Arizona legislature says we want to be more like Texas, and they look at one of your laws, they say, you know what, we want to be more like Texas, but we want to be more Texan than the Texans. So we take anything you make, and then we take it to an extreme. So I'm coming from a place where we have had a state legislature that has just gone super majority. We have 9 Senate Democrats. There are more staffers than there are senators in the state legislature on the Senate side. So I feel your pain. So 2012 is a really important year. And I know we hear it every single election cycle. I've been in politics for a few years, and every time, even if it's a municipal race, even if it's a city council race, we always say, you know what, this is the big one. But this really is the big one. 2012 is extremely important for several reasons. First of all, redistricting. This is going to be our chance as Democrats to really take advantage of the new districts. Whether or not they come out our way, we can still win some of the districts, especially if they're slightly more competitive. Especially here in Texas and in Arizona, we are going to have to go out there, we're going to have to drink one less fancy coffee, go out to one less movie to donate that tiny little bit more. And it's not just enough to donate money, it's great, but we're going to need you to put in all your energy that you can. You're going to need to knock on some doors, as much as everyone hates that. You're going to need to call some phone numbers, as much as everyone hates that. And I know I've been working in politics for years. I've made thousands of phone calls. It doesn't get any easier. It actually gets worse because they hang up on you more the more you do it. So we're going to need to not just give up some of our money, we're going to need to give up our time. That's going to be the most important thing. And we're going to need to do it so we're protecting our incumbent state legislators that are doing a good job, and trying to work in those districts where we realize, you know, we can't get a Democrat in that district, so let's go over to where it's slightly more competitive across the street or across the other side of the city, so we can get another Democrat in that state legislature. But I think one of the other things that we need to remember is the importance of the last 2 years of the Obama administration. Just as a reminder, I don't need to remind you because you're all activists and you all know, but I always like to remind people, in the first days of the Obama administration, the very first bill that he signed into law was the Lilly Ledbetter Equal Pay Act. Which for the first time ensured that all Americans get equal pay for equal work. Such a novel idea, right? It only took a 200-year time span to actually get that done. So it was that, and that is huge in and of itself. But we've had healthcare, but things that are more specific to our community. We have the Matthew Shepard Anti-Discrimination Act, which for the first time gives protection to transgendered Americans. It is the first time in American history that transgendered Americans are covered by any protection law. It also says, regardless of your gender identity, your sexual identity, or disability, you're covered. So we have had that. We have also had a Justice Department that has stopped defending DOMA. And we've also had an administration that has repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was a horrible stopgap. And President Clinton came out and said, you know, it was the best we could do in 1990, but it's not the best we can do today.
True.
So we have had a lot of successes, and there's still a lot of work to be done. I know there's going to be some of us who are going to say, you know what, he hasn't come out in favor of full marriage equality, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that, but we have to remember where we were 8 years ago. And remember where we were 2 years ago, because in 2 short years we've been able to accomplish that, but we only accomplished that because we had a president who was willing to fight for us. We had a president and a Congress that had a majority that was Democrats. So we need to work back towards that. I know it's going to be hard, but that's why we need to make sure we're digging deep into our pockets, digging deep into our time, and going out there and working. Because the advances that we've made in the last couple of years, they can all easily be reversed. If we have someone like Michelle Bachmann, Rick Perry, so all of the advances that we've made in the last several years can easily be reversed. Unless we take a stand now and we say, you know what, he may not have done everything we want, yet he has plenty of time. And in 2 short years he's been able to show he's been able to do more than the last 3 administrations for LGBT people combined. Yeah. So we need to give him more time to actually get his job done. But we need to realize it's not just about the presidential race anymore, because that's what everyone pays attention to in 2012 or any year where we have a presidential election. We need to focus on the state legislatures and those congressional seats where we can have a pickup. So I know I've taken up a lot of your time already, but thank you so much for coming up. I can go on forever.
Keep going.
Like I said, I've been doing politics for a long time. I'm relatively young, but the reason I started getting involved in politics was because there wasn't anyone like me, and I wasn't being represented. And you know what, I take that back. When I did see myself, it was always in the, this is what will lead to people marrying their dogs argument. In Arizona, and I think back in 06, 07, when they were talking about, 04 really, when George Bush was running for re-election as the social conservative who wanted to really protect us against gay marriage, you always heard about gay people, but it was always in the, if we let them take this little step, which is the same thing that everyone else is able to do, it'll somehow lead to people being able to marry their dogs. So when I was seeing things like that, I said in 2007, you know, I'm not saying anyone like me, and I'm not old enough to run for office, so I'm going to work for those people who are allies and those people who are doing a good job trying to represent us. I was lucky that I found 2 people who I respected, who I was able to see, who were, sorry, I'm schwitzing. I don't know if anyone can get it. It's way warm in here, but it's
Texas.
And I just came from 113-degree heat, so I again feel your pain.
We have the humidity.
We have humidity.
That's one thing we don't have in Arizona. You can keep the humidity. But in 2007, I was really lucky to have found someone who was running for president, who had marched in the gay pride parades, who had really stood up and said, gay rights are the same as human rights. And that was Hillary Clinton in 2007. Yeah. So I worked with her until the last day in 2008, June 8th, 2008, not that everyone remembers that date, but I really, that was my first step, and I realized, you know, having someone who is a young Latino, someone who is a young gay man, is changing a lot of minds, because I was working with people who were union, and they were strong union, and they had been in unions for decades. But having people who were gay was a novelty to them. Especially a young gay Latino, they didn't know what to make of me. So they put me to work, and they noticed that I could do just as much as they could, that I could probably do a little bit more. So I started really gaining acceptance not just for myself, but for others, by just doing the work that I did anyways. And then after the campaign for Hillary Clinton closed down in 2008, I found another person whom I really admired, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, whom for years, even before January the 8th, had really been an inspiration and an advocate for our community. She's someone who has had an Equality Arizona Award that she received back when she was in the state legislature on prominent display. It's one of the first things you see when you get to her congressional office. And it is someone who has voted for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and it wasn't a hard question. So I was very lucky to find these allies, and I think that's one of the main things that we need to do in the LGBT communities. Until we have our own candidates who can represent us, we need to make sure that we're standing strong for those allies. And the president is one of our strong allies, and you have many other strong allies here in the state legislature. So with that, I think I'll end. But again, thank you so much. Remember, 2012 is that important year. It is going to be the year where, no matter how long you've been in politics, this is really going to make a difference. Because we've already lost the House, we're on the verge of losing the Senate, and we could lose the presidency. And if we do any of those things, the gains that we've made will fall back. That New York Senate decision, which legalized gay marriage for the first time, will be something that will be a big, distant memory. It'll not be something that'll be a segue into more things. It'll be something like, oh, in New York they were able to do that. Oh well. And we don't want that to happen. So please contribute what you can, whether it's time or money. I know it's hard, it's always hard, but 2012 is really a big year.